Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Secure Woman podcast. Today, I'm diving into something that I am asked about a lot, and this is around how I went from back-to-back toxic relationships, narcissists, avoidant, emotionally immature man-children, emotional abuse, to being in the beautiful, secure relationship that I am in today and have been for the last 3.5 years. And so what I'm going to talk through is exactly what I did. And not just that either. I actually met him 6 months after the breakup of my last toxic relationship. And it's because I did exactly what I'm going to share with you in our podcast today that got me to break that toxic relationship cycle that I had been stuck in for nearly a decade, to meeting the love of my life, man of my dreams, secure partner, in just 6 months, so that you can do it too. Now, I know that breakups absolutely suck. As I always say, they're like one of the most universally understood shit experiences. But a breakup of a toxic relationship, a narcissist, or a trauma bond, that's different to your regular breakup. It is more painful. It is harder to break. It's harder to overcome because of the toxicity and the highs and lows, the hope, the withdrawal, the betrayal, the hurt, the wounds, the abuse that you experienced inside the relationship. And so healing from a toxic relationship, getting over your toxic ex, is different to what most people will say about a breakup. You know, so many people will say, oh, give it time, or my absolute most hated is to get over someone, you've got to get under someone else. Like it'll just happen like that. But when you are dealing with a toxic relationship breakup, when you're dealing with a trauma bond, it's not the same. It's got to be different. And especially if you have recognized that you have a habit of toxic relationships, if you have a pattern of attracting or being attracted to the same kinds of men who are avoidant or emotionally unavailable or narcissistic or wounded, you're going to have to do things differently. You're going to have to do the deep healing. And I get that it is really, really tempting to just try and avoid doing this, to just try and move on as fast as possible, but it never works. The longer you avoid your grief, your hurt, the longer you try and numb it, the longer you try and run away from it, the longer you try and distract yourself from it, the longer you delay your healing. And the thing is, it doesn't just go away. Grief doesn't just go away on its own. It's not like it fades, you know, that old saying of time heals all wounds. It's not true, especially in the case of trauma and of toxic relationships. It just stays stuck in your body and it'll continue to get triggered and come up at super inconvenient times. It'll continue to bleed into your relationships, your work, your friendships, your self-image, your identity, the way you show up in the world, until you face it, feel it, deal with it, heal it. It doesn't go away on its own. You have to be proactive. Because if you don't do this healing, if you don't break your trauma bond, if you don't process your grief and the anger and frustration and confusion and heartbreak that this relationship left you with, and you try and just get over it by getting back into dating or moving on as fast as possible, the way you then go into dating, your reasons behind going into dating and looking for a partner, being avoidance, looking for love, looking for someone else to make you feel better, hoping someone else can heal the heart that someone else broke, that is only going to lead you into another toxic relationship. Same dynamic, the same pain, the same heartache, and you're just going to end up right back here in another 6 months, year, 2 years, 5 years time, wishing that you had done the healing that I'm about to tell you about. And so, yes, it's hard to face the grief. Yes, it's uncomfortable to heal, but it'll actually save you time in the long run to just face it and go through it so that you don't keep repeating this. It's uncomfortable in the short term, but long-term peace comes on the other side. Whereas avoiding, trying to move on as fast as possible, that keeps you stuck. It keeps you in the pain. It keeps you looping. It keeps you creating more trauma. And the thing is too, with emotions, right? And we can all relate to this, is even when you're trying to avoid or distract yourself from feeling a certain kind of feeling, it's still lurking there in the back of your mind, in your body. You can still feel it. It's still there. You are aware that you are avoiding, and that in itself is uncomfortable. So you're much better off to just go in, face it, get out the other side, and start living a life that feels safer, happier, more secure, more peaceful. And so the very first thing that I did after the breakup of my 4.5-year toxic relationship, covert narcissist, very wounded person, it ended him cheating on me again, and I finally decided to walk away. And instead of doing what I had always done in the past, which was try and avoid, try and numb, jump back into another relationship, try and find someone else to mend my wounds, this time I decided to dedicate 3 months to doing the deepest healing of my life. I made a promise to myself, and I remember it's such like a movie moment, not in a fun way, but looking back, it feels very movie moment-esque. And it was the night that the relationship had ended. I was driving away. It was late at night. We lived together in a rural area, so there were no streetlights, full moon. It was raining. It was very dramatic. I was sobbing, literally feeling my heart crumble into pieces. And I just had this deep, profound moment of like surrender, of just going, if this is what is meant to be part of my journey, so be it. I'm trusting in the universe, God, whoever it is up there who has the master plan. I'm trusting that this is meant to be part of it. And I promise myself that I am going to do this breakup differently. Because I was sick of ending up back here. I'd done it for nearly 10 years. I was sick of being hurt. I was sick of being in toxic relationships. I was sick of my kindness and my love being taken advantage of by wounded little men with the emotional maturity of a plank of wood. I didn't want to do it again. That wasn't the life that I wanted. That wasn't the relationship that I wanted for my future. That isn't the kind of person that I wanted to raise my children around. Fuck that. And so in that moment, I committed to, I'm going to feel everything. I'm going to heal through this. And I'm going to come out the other side of this as the best version of myself, the best version that I had ever been. I didn't want to just go back to who I was before because, I don't want to go back to the insecure woman who got into these relationships. I am coming out the other side of this, never tolerating this kind of behavior again. And so I didn't date for 3 whole months. I actually think it turned into more like 4, but for 3 whole months was my first initial set guidelines. I didn't date. I didn't download dating apps. I didn't go out every weekend partying or escaping with my friends to just numb. I didn't throw myself into my work to avoid. Instead, I committed to doing the deepest healing of my life. I committed to doing the somatic trauma healing to heal the root causes that I had started to become aware of that were driving my toxic relationship cycles. And so these are the 5 major things that I focused on in doing that. And healing these is exactly why 6 months after my breakup happened, I met the man of my dreams, the man who I am now with and have been with for the last 3.5 years, is because I did this healing. So the very first one, this was so important for me. The very first one was healing my father wounds. And now my father wounds is something that I had been aware of for a very long time. My dad is an avoidant, very emotionally unavailable, a covert narcissist. And I spent my childhood feeling emotionally abandoned, not good enough, but also too much, too emotional, too sensitive. I felt continuously let down by him because he wouldn't show up. He was a very angry, moody, temperamental person, and having that in the house was very destabilizing for the environment to grow up in as a young child. And because of that, I realized that I had subconsciously, ever since I was a teenager, been choosing men that were basically his mini-me's. basically his mini-me's. They were all avoidant, all emotionally unavailable. A lot of them were narcissists or narcissistic. And it was what I was attracted to because it's what's familiar. Our bodies crave familiarity. Our subconscious leads us towards what is familiar because familiar means predictable. We already know the outcome. You've already built the coping mechanisms to earn that love or to be okay with the instability or the chaos. It's normal to your nervous system. Your body will always choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. It's why, and you might have said this as well, I certainly know I did. From a young age, I said, I never want to be with someone like my dad. I never want to marry someone like my dad. But what did I do? I dated his mini-me's for nearly 10 years. And what I also realized in my search for trying to repair the father wounds that I had inside me in my relationships, like this is what happens, right? That little girl who was wounded and has that father wound, she goes into relationships thinking, oh, if I can find someone who's so similar, who's just like him, and I can convince him to love me, to choose me in the ways that I didn't feel like my dad or my parent did, then that'll fix the wound, right? But the thing is that no person, not even your dad, even if your dad was to apologize for everything he did tomorrow, it wouldn't fix the fact that the wound has already been imprinted into your nervous system and that you've already built survival mechanisms, coping mechanisms, protector parts to surround and respond to that. No one else outside of yourself is able to heal those wounds apart from you. Actually going back in to those original experiences, your OG programming, healing and reprogramming your nervous system and your subconscious, which is exactly what I did. And it's exactly what I do with so many of my clients. I'd say like 90% of the women who come and work with me have father wounds. And so that's usually one of the first things we work on because we realize how much it underpins the men that we choose, the men that we are just naturally gravitate towards, even when you're saying in your mind, I want a good man, I want a secure man, I don't want anyone like my father. There's a reason why you keep ending up with his literal doppelgangers. It's because it's not a conscious decision, it's subconscious. And so you need to go back in and you need to heal that and reprogram that. Like I said, that's what I did. That's what I do with my clients. And another piece of this that I realized was that I had also been on a few dates over the years with secure people, secure men, but I always wrote them off as boring or too nice or too good to be true, purely because security, consistency, someone being open about their feelings or their intentions, me not having to chase or prove or beg, felt so foreign because I'd never done that before. From such a young age, I learned that I had to chase, beg, put up with breadcrumbs, make excuses in order to feel loved, in order to get breadcrumbs of love. And that's exactly what I repeated in my relationships. And so that was the very first thing that I needed to focus on healing. And that's exactly what I did. The next thing, the second thing, and this goes hand in hand with healing the father wounds because these things are so interconnected, was that I knew I needed to go from being anxiously attached to becoming securely attached. I had dealt with anxious attachment, my entire life, but in all of my relationships, my anxious attachment gremlin was driving the bus. It haunted all of them. And I was fucking sick of it. I was sick of it. And I had actually spent the last 2 years prior to my breakup in that toxic relationship aware of this and trying to heal my anxious attachment, but it never worked. I would take like 2 steps forward, 3 steps back because I was with such a toxic avoidant partner. And so it never stuck because you can't heal in a triggering environment. You can't heal your anxious attachment if you're in a relationship with an avoidant who refuses to acknowledge their avoidance or refuses to actually do anything about it. And that's what I'd been trying to do. And so literally, and this is so no word of a lie, in this 3-month window of me going, right, I'm healing this, I'm coming out the other side of this, securely attached, after 2 years of actively trying to heal it in that toxic relationship, after my breakup, I healed it in 3 months. After these 3 months of deep somatic healing, I become securely attached, and I've maintained my secure attachment ever since. And this is because of the approach I took to healing my anxious attachment. So often people talk about, and I see this a lot online and even in the attached book, and it's why I have a little bit of an issue with the attached book. I think the theory is there, but the approach to healing it is not ideal, because everyone talks about overcoming your anxious attachment in like a mindset, thoughts, affirmations, think differently sort of way. But your anxious attachment, again, it isn't in your mind. It's not in your head. Yes, all the thoughts are there, but if you are someone who's listening to this and you are currently anxiously attached or you're anxious leaning, I want you to think about the last time that got triggered. When you were like in the grips of your anxious attachment gremlin. Think of that panic. Think of that anxiety that hung with you all day or for days on end, like a bad smell that made you struggle to sleep, struggle to eat, struggle to focus at work, struggle to function. That's not in your head. You were feeling that in your body. You can't think your way out of it. If you could, you wouldn't still be trying to heal your anxious attachment. You have to heal it where it lives, which is in your nervous system. The thing with attachment too is it starts the moment you're born. Your attachment system begins getting programmed the moment you are born. There's a reason why there's such a strong birth practice now of skin to skin connection as soon as a baby is born. Obviously, it's not always possible, but that's the ideal, right? Is baby is born and immediately it's put on your mum's chest to start that bonding process, to start the attachment. And so it's basically like you're born with your nervous system intact, and then the next brick directly on top of your nervous system, directly intertwined with it, is your attachment system. And it starts forming based off your earliest bonding experience, your very first bonding experience, which is between you and your primary caregivers, your mum and your dad. The type of relationship, the consistency in them being able to meet your needs, how secure and safe and loved you felt is what wires your attachment system. And if you grew up with parents who were emotionally unavailable or inconsistent or abandoned you emotionally or physically, who might have been dealing with their own issues, whether that be mental health, physical health, addiction, if you had a parent who worked a lot and wasn't around much, if you had a parent who would sometimes come and soothe you when you needed, but sometimes wouldn't, and you didn't know when, that is programming your attachment system to be insecure. And that is attachment trauma. And from that, you decide, not consciously, but subconsciously, you decide whether you lean anxious or you lean avoidant. It comes from the same root wound. And in order to heal your anxious attachment, you have to heal your original programming. You have to heal your attachment trauma, the things that happened to program your attachment system right back when you were a child in those first years of life, ages 0 to 8, those key childhood developmental years. That is the work you need to do. That's the work I did. And I did that with somatic healing modalities, like the ones that I use with clients. I was able to guide myself through them. I also did it with EMDR, with a specialized EMDR therapist, which was still somatic. It's still using your nervous system, teaching it to regulate, reprogramming your nervous system, removing the energetic charge and power that those earliest memories that you probably can't consciously remember because you were a toddler or a baby, taking the trigger out of them. That's what somatic work does. You can't do that by talking. You can't do that by journaling. You can't do that by just telling yourself, I'm secure, I'm safe. It doesn't work like that. You have to heal it through your body because it is imprinted into your body, but it doesn't have to be permanently. Like I said, I healed my lifelong anxious attachment in 3 months. I became secure. 3 months of doing this work. And it was such a crucial piece of being able to call in a secure partner as well, because it meant that when I started dating, I showed up securely. I wasn't going, oh, I hope someone picks me. I wasn't scared that someone would leave. Wasn't scared of being chosen out of fear of being rejected and that being triggering to my anxious attachment. I was my full authentic self. I wanted to repel the wrong people. I asked the questions. I was confident. That's how I showed up in dating. That's why I was able to repel the wrong, toxic, avoidant men that I was not going to fuck around with anymore, and called in wonderful, secure people. And my partner, I went on dates with other secure people prior to him as well. And it was just not aligned, or values or whatever, like just because someone's secure doesn't mean you're automatically going to be like attracted to them or they're automatically going to be your person. But it's like the key foundation. It's like the number one non-negotiable that you need to be looking for in dating is that person has a secure attachment. It's what led me to being able to also receive the love and the consistency from my partner and not get freaked out and run away from it or think that it was boring or too good to be true purely because it was unfamiliar, because I became secure in myself first. The next piece with this, and again, this ties directly in, I had to heal my fear of abandonment, my abandonment wound. And as I just shared, the abandonment wound is the core wound that creates anxious and avoidant attachment styles. It's the attachment trauma. It's that feeling of when you were growing up that you were physically or emotionally abandoned. It's not just physical abandonment. I think often when people talk about abandonment wounds, they think you were left on the doorstep of a fire station or your parent walked out on your family. Yes, of course, those would cause abandonment wounds. More commonly, though, abandonment wounds come from emotional abandonment by having an emotionally unavailable parent, a parent who does not have the capacity to consistently show up for you, love you, soothe you, make you feel safe, show you affection, show you that you're loved. And if a parent can't consistently do that, the threat of abandonment to a child is so terrifying. So terrifying, because when we're born onto this planet, we are like, bless, love humans. We're great, awesome. But in our early years of life, we are fucking incapable. You think about it like a giraffe or a horse or any animal in the wild, pretty much. They're born and then within a couple of hours, they're up and walking around because they know they need to not be immobile, reliant on their adult or their parent, because that could get them killed. That would leave them exposed to predators. Humans, what you literally could put a baby down up until about sort of like 5-6 months, and it's not going to go anywhere. Like we are born knowing that we are 100% reliant on our parent for protection, for safety, for survival. And so then if you have experiences of feeling like you can't rely on your parent, you feel abandoned physically or emotionally, you can't rely on consistent safety or consistent protection or consistent connection, that is what creates the abandonment wound. And that feels like a direct threat to survival to your little tiny nervous system. It feels like a direct threat on your life. That is why the abandonment wound has you in such a chokehold. That is why in your relationships or in dating, when you feel rejected or when you are in a relationship, you probably experience this in your toxic relationship, where you felt like you were going to break up. Maybe they said something, maybe they were starting to withdraw, maybe you got into a big argument, and that panic, that anxious attachment, that fear, that panic, that anxiety took over your body. And before you know it, you are crying, you are having a meltdown, or you are begging for them to stay, or you are apologizing for things you didn't even do just because you want to try and make them stay and try and protect yourself from being abandoned. That is being driven by the abandonment wound. I think about when I was in my past toxic relationships, the amount of times I felt that trigger. When my ex, and he did this numerous times, tried to end things or say that he wasn't sure if he wanted to be in a relationship, it would send me into a full-blown panic attack. Full-blown panic attack, and I would beg for him not to do it. I would promise to change. I would beg that we could work it out. I would sweep things under the rug, and eventually too, like I didn't want it to get to that point. I didn't want him to push him to that point, so I just stopped bringing things up. was all because I was so terrified of being abandoned. And now looking back on that, I can see that there were so many situations, had I had healed my abandonment wound before that, I would have let him walk away, or I would have walked away. He tried to do it within the first couple of months of us dating. And I remember like begging for him to not do this or making excuses. Oh, it's, I'm not looking for anything that serious, da, 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 da. When in hindsight, I wish I'd fucking walked away then. I mean, I don't wish, because it all worked out for the reason it needed to work out. It got me to where I am in my life, my business, my relationships. Now I know that it all happened for a reason and I wouldn't change it. But, looking back, if I didn't have the abandonment wound or that crippling fear of abandonment still living so intensely inside my nervous system, in my inner child, I would have been able to walk away, and I would not have spent 4.5 years on a fucking roller coaster of a relationship. And probably in me saying that, you can relate to that as well. Something that I realized when I healed my abandonment wound, overcame my fear of abandonment, I realized that actually abandoning myself was 100 times more painful than being abandoned by someone else. And this is the thing, when you become secure, how you know that you have healed your abandonment wound or you've overcome your fear of abandonment is that you get to the point where you go, I know I'd be okay. I think about in my relationship now, would I be okay with him leaving? It would feel pretty shitty. Absolutely. It would suck. I would be really hurt. I'd be upset. I'd cry. I'd grieve, but I would be okay. I know that I would be okay. I know that it's not a direct threat to my life. It no longer feels like a direct threat to my survival because I know I can hold myself through it. And that is something that my breakup massively taught me while I was healing this, while I was feeling those really deep, painful emotions, while I was confronting my shadows and my trauma, is that I was actually capable of holding myself through it. Through things that for a really long time I thought would break me, that would crumble me, that would force me to melt down and I could never repair myself from. I realized that I could actually do that myself. I could hold myself through it. I was capable of that, which then meant I realized I didn't need someone else or something else outside myself to do that. I didn't need a boyfriend or a relationship or a man or anyone to fix me, quote unquote, fix me. I didn't need anyone else to soothe me. I did it myself. I did it for myself. I learned how to do it for myself using somatic tools. And this is why when women come into working with me, and especially when women come into my Secure Woman Era Mastermind, one of the very first things we focus on in our one-on-one sessions and as part of the private intensive at the beginning of the mastermind is somatic self-soothing tools, because it helps you realize I don't need anyone else. I can hold myself. I can soothe myself. I can get through this. And that makes you feel like fucking superwoman. That makes you feel like you can get through anything. You can get through whatever the world, the universe throws at you. Because life is always going to lie. Hard things are always going to happen. Triggers are unavoidable. Shitty situations are unavoidable. It's going to happen. So you've got to learn this. Like I said, if I had learnt this many, many years ago, I would not have spent 10 years of my life, of my prime years, wasting it on some toxic little fucking man-children. Ugh. I would have been like, no, thank you, sir. I'm quite all right. I know that I got myself and my life, and looking after myself is a hell of a lot better than putting up with your bullshit. That is why it's so integral to learn these tools. And again, it's the things that go beyond just trying to think your way out of it, journal your way out of it, chat your way out of it. That doesn't work. Again, if talking, thinking, journaling your way out of grief, pain, or a trigger worked, you wouldn't still be missing your ex, or you wouldn't still be feeling triggered about something. You wouldn't still be feeling anxious or upset. Like, I know you've been trying it, but it doesn't work. You've got to go into the body. The somatic work is the key here for all of these things, because all of it starts in your nervous system. It starts in your body. This all leads me into the fourth thing I really focused on And that was becoming securely single. And I will die on this hill as this being one of the most crucial steps to becoming a secure woman and being able to call in a secure partner. You have to become secure in yourself first. You have to become securely single first by learning to self-soothe and by building a life for yourself that you love, that feels fulfilling, that feels fun and exciting and peaceful and safe, and that you wake up in the morning and you go, oh, I'm excited about today. I feel good about today. You wake up on a Saturday morning and you go, yeah, I'm excited to do these things, even if it's not big plans. I'm excited to go on my morning walk in the sunshine with my coffee or my matcha. I'm excited to catch up with a girlfriend. I'm excited to go to the gym or Pilates. I'm excited to go for a really nice lunch or dinner. I'm excited to get into my hobbies, whatever they may be. Building a 10 out of 10 life for yourself that does not rely on or revolve around a man or a relationship or dating. Because what this does and why it is so crucial in you being able to call in a secure partner when you do start dating is that it massively raises your standards. Massively raises your standards. You know, you think about the standards in which you were dating from or that you had when you were last dating before you got into your toxic relationship, the level of which you viewed yourself as or your life as when you met your ex. Chances are it was probably like a 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 10, which means some average, barely bare minimum, low effort man who's like a 6 out of 10, a 5 out of 10 comes along and you go, wow, he's so much better than my 2 out of 10 life. I guess that's great. But really, it's fucking average. When you build yourself to a 10 out of 10 woman, a 10 out of 10 life that you love, that is your new standard. Because you're going, why would I settle for someone, some a-hole who's 5 out of 10, who can add nothing to my already great life? Why would I invite in that drama, that chaos? No, thank you. I'd rather be single. I'd rather be single and wait until I find my 10 out of 10 dream partner. Someone who is also a whole person on their own. Someone who has also got a life that they love. And then you come together. And that you have like a 20 out of 10 life. But you can't do that until you have created that for yourself. You have raised your new standard. Someone else can't do that for you. You've got to do it. And it comes with taking action. It comes with getting out of your comfort zone, trying new things. One of the things that I always do with clients to do this, the very first step is what I call project self-devotion, where we go all in on pouring into yourself, especially too coming from toxic relationships or anxious attachment behaviors. You've probably spent however many past months or years putting all of your focus, attention, energy, money even into someone else who didn't even fucking appreciate it. And that's how you lose yourself in the process. It's time to focus on yourself. It's time to pour all of that, redirect all of that energy you were once giving to someone else or to dating, to pour it into yourself. Because it's a fucking game changer. And then number 5, the 5th thing that I really focused on was rewiring my nervous system to feel familiar and safe with secure, stable, consistent people and stop being attracted to chaos. And in order to do that, this ties directly in with becoming securely single, becoming secure in your own first. It's about creating safety and peace and groundedness and consistency in your own life first. Because when that becomes your new norm in your own life, becomes the new norm in your relationships. That becomes what is the new standard. If someone comes along who's avoidant and hot and cold and gives you breadcrumbs and makes you chase and brings drama into your life, that's actually going to become unsettling for your nervous system. Whereas right now it probably feels really fucking exciting and fun and tasty and familiar. And you know that all that leads you to is a roller coaster of a relationship, and that chaos stops being so exciting, actually becomes really triggering. You want a partner who you can trust will show up for you when you need. A partner who is your safe space at the end of a busy day. You want a partner who you can trust, a partner who you know isn't going anywhere, a partner who you know loves you, a partner who's consistent in his respect, his affection. But if you have not reprogrammed your chaos-addicted nervous system, which has been addicted to chaos since you were born, if you had that emotionally unavailable or inconsistent parent, or the household you grew up in, the temperature was real chaotic, real up and down, highs and lows, like that's what primed your nervous system. That's what wrote and programmed your nervous system. So that's what's became the norm, and that's why you're so attracted to it in your relationships. And if you don't consciously, proactively focus on flipping that, reprogramming it, which is absolutely possible to do. I'm literally living, breathing proof, and so are countless of my clients. You don't do that, you're only going to keep repeating the toxic dynamic, the toxic relationships, toxic friendships, chaotic work environments, a chaotic life. And I know you don't want that. You want safety, you want peace, you want calm, you want fun, you want to feel loved. But you can't do that. You can't experience that until you have done these 5 things, until you have healed these 5 things. Because all of this turns you into a secure woman. A woman who will never again fall victim to, be preyed on, be hooked in by some toxic, emotionally immature, emotionally unsafe, narcissistic asshole. Never again. Never again. And like I said, living proof of it right here. Healing these 5 things is the exact reason that I then, 6 months after my breakup, met the man of my dreams. And it's why I've been able to maintain that relationship, stay in it, not self-sabotage it, not freak out and run away from it for 3.5 years. And he truly is the love of my life. He is such a wonderful, patient, generous, kind, loving partner. He's the kind of man that I didn't think existed once upon a time when I was in back-to-back toxic relationships, or I didn't believe I would ever get to experience that. I thought these kinds of relationships were for other people, not me. When I healed these, the things that were also the root cause of those beliefs, my world completely flipped. My relationships completely changed. And I met the love of my life. And I'm secure in myself, and I run an amazing business, and I have amazing friends, and I live in a beautiful house right by the beach. I'm living the life of my dreams because I chose to turn my breakup into my biggest ever fucking breakthrough. And it only took 3 months. 3 months of healing. Next 3 months were like living my best life, getting back into dating, met the love of my life. This is the work that I do with my clients. And I've seen it. My story is not unique. I've seen it with so many of my clients. So many of my clients. That's why I'm so passionate about this, as I'm sure you can probably tell from this podcast. And it's possible for you too. Me, my clients, we're not different. We're not luckier or better than you. We chose to stop avoiding, stop running away, and instead do the deepest healing ever, to do the deep somatic healing work. And so if you would like to do that, if you're like, yes, this is what I need to do. If you've been trying the talk therapy, you've been trying to do it on your own, or you've been trying to do it by chatting to AI, and you're still stuck. You're still where you were a month ago, 2 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. You're like, fuck this, I'm done. Send me a message. DM me on Instagram. My Secure Woman Era Mastermind is the place where I will guide you through all of these steps. In 6 months, literally 6 months from now, so that's like January next year, you could have met the love of your life. You can be a secure woman. You could be living a completely different reality. It's up to you to choose. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, if you want to explore what it would look like to work with me, DM me on Instagram, and I will speak to you on the next episode. Bye.